Hello, and welcome to Health and Fitness Redefined. I'm your host, Anthony Amen. Join me today as we take a dive into the world of health and fitness, where we're going to how to overcome adversity, to pick the back to restriction, and see health and fitness in a whole new light. First off, guys, Happy New Year. Welcome to 2023. That is right. We are finally in the new year with this show. So it's been a great 3 years. I've been super excited to kind of do this episode, get these out for you. So thank you guys for listening to our show. We wouldn't be here without you. So without further ado, let's hop in to today's episode. Welcome, Jason. It's a pleasure having you today.
Hey, Anthony, brother. Thank you so much to have me. I appreciate you having me, especially on this, for a fitness podcast. This is the biggest day of the year, so I'm excited to be here.
This is it, man. This is time to start over, new year, new you kind of deal. And I just have that feeling, and maybe it's just me, that 2020 obviously wasn't a good year for a lot of people. 2021 still was a linger of 2020. It kind of blended together. Then 2022 was that recovery year. Yeah. And then this is the year. This is like full-blown, boom, dynamite kind of year. I just feel it in my blood.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, man. I think, typically I try not to focus on year by year by year, but come on, let's face it, we all kind of do. And I agree. I think 2022 was people kind of going back to the buffet, trying to get in travel, getting out there. They were doing a lot more social stuff, hopefully for a lot of folks, they were getting back into their gym routines. But yeah, I bet you there's some discipline to be found here in early 2023.
I think we're on the right track. So let's get into this, man, and just tell us a little bit about yourself and kind of how you got started in the fitness world.
All right. Well, listen, so I'm the owner, one of the founding owners of Bucktown CrossFit, which is also Chicago Elite Fitness. I'm a minority owner now, but for many years I was one of, if not the primary owner and running it day to day. I am a military veteran. I served 4 years in the United States Army. I also spent some time in the world of finance. And now for the last few years, on top of being a fitness entrepreneur, I work with other entrepreneurs, many of whom are in fitness, and I help them.
So you're the guy that everybody goes to talk to. So that's why I kind of chose to do this episode, because we get gym owners on, right? And they get the trainers. So the trainers get all the stories from their clients. The gym owners get all the stories from all the trainers and all their clients. But then the fitness coach is that next step up. So you just got a plethora of things that you hear from being on all sides of working with people all over the globe.
Yeah, it's funny you say that. You talk about the guy that people come to. I actually think it's kind of the other way. I wanted so badly, once I found fitness and some of these other things that I work on professionally, once I found how impactful they were to my life, it was actually kind of the other way. It was like, oh my gosh, I can really help myself. And then it was like, oh my gosh, who else can I help? And at first it was a couple of people in my garage behind this apartment that one of my partners, Garnett, and I had in Chicago. And then it was a dusty warehouse on the 4th floor of this really crappy timber loft building in Chicago. Shout out to Mendel and those folks. And eventually it became this really nice big facility that I could help all these people. And then I was like, holy crap, this lens can zoom even further. So I started to help other entrepreneurs. And so more than folks coming to me, it was like me shouting out into space, like, who can I tell this to? Who can I help with it? And along the way, I've made some really great relationships. But as that lens has zoomed out, the word for it in my entrepreneur's brain is scale, right? Is more and more scale, which is why now I'm so focused, not just on helping entrepreneurs, but by going on shows like this, where we can have an impact on an even bigger audience that maybe can take this positive message out into the world and do some good with it.
Yeah, and we have a great audience here. So yeah. I'm excited to kind of show you guys some new ways. I like doing more of a goal setting for January. But first, I just want to ask you a question that is a personal thing I've noticed, but I want to get your opinion from talking to a lot of gym owners.
Sure.
And with the New Year's, it used to be that new year, new me kind of thing, where it was, all right, I'm going to lose 30 pounds this year. I'm going to hit the gym 4 days a week, and the gyms would get packed the first 3 weeks of January. And it would be crazy busy. But I feel like that New Year's resolution of fitness and weight loss has been dwindling over the last 5 years. And people now take it as a stigma or a joke when somebody says they're going to lose weight for the new year. So most people don't even do it anymore. And we don't get that rush in gyms that we used to get in January. And now it's more been it's usually like March or April, where it's that first warm day, like that here in the Northeast, when you get that first 65-degree day after a brutal winter, everyone goes, oh my God, I need to join the gym. So that's kind of where things have shifted to. And I want to see if you've kind of noticed the same thing.
Yeah, that's a really insightful question, first of all, Anthony, but I think I understand it. And it's based, as a lot of things that have been bad that have happened in life, it's based in something that's good. So the nugget of something that's good is you're right about that, about 5 or 6 years ago, somebody or the conversation culturally turned to, hey, it's dumb to reset and try to lose a bunch of weight or set a bad goal of making $1 million this year or whatever the goals might be. And so I think there was like an earnest, good approach to like saying, hey, let's set better goals. These are silly goals to drop 10 pounds quickly and then just feel bad about yourself and end up on a yo-yo diet, right? And so I think the problem is the virtuous part of that never came true, which is to set great long-term sustainable goals that are centered around things you can control and like long-term lifestyle. But the other part of it, the stigma part of it, stuck. And so what we're seeing as a result of that is people are going, they're basically skipping, they're passing go and skipping to jail, right? They're going straight to, well, then I better not set that goal. And so instead of setting a healthy goal that's based on things you can control and that actually might impact your lifestyle long-term, people are going, oh, well, that thing is just, that's a fallacy. So I'm just going to skip it this year. And so instead they've now given themselves permission to coast right through the holidays all the way till it's pre-bikini season. And then of course, now they're in panic mode, right?
Total panic.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to get a little more in depth with that. I know they said you kind of they missed that virtue part of it.
Yeah.
But why? Why has the conversation changed? What happened in our culture that New Year's resolutions, which should have been around for years, all of a sudden just...
I think like every complex message that goes through our culture, our zeitgeist is what the word is, it's really difficult for the way we communicate to hold complex ideas. And so what typically happens is the lowest common denominator of that idea is what stands true. Does that make sense? And so if I were to tell you that, hey, rather than trying to lose 10 pounds in 30 days this year, that's going to cause this negative spiral, you should try to do this other thing that maybe is a little bit harder and maybe will take a little bit longer term focus and maybe even has some delayed gratification. Well, that part of the message ends up getting chopped off. And so what makes it through social media and touches through the algorithms and ends up on the morning news channel where they're sitting around drinking coffee and chuckling, like all that stuff, all of those today, if you turn on if you still have terrestrial TV and you turn on, whatever the morning show is, the kind of happy coffee morning show, they're going to be talking about this thing. They're going to be talking about your New Year's resolution. And I bet you the conversation will go something like, don't set short-term goals that end up with bad results. And I think the takeaway, unfortunately, is that lowest common denominator of the message as opposed to the more nuanced and complex message, which is what podcasting is for.
Yeah, exactly. The really in detail depth part of the message, as opposed to don't set short-term goals, but blah, 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 and then you zone out after but. And you're like, okay, that's all I heard.
Exactly.
So I guess the flip side of the question is, how do we bring it back? Because personally, the holidays are very tough. And I know even for people like you and I who are pretty disciplined, pretty on top of how we eat, it's like I still like come Thanksgiving, Christmas, I promise you I'm eating like 4,000 calories a meal.
Yeah.
Like give me that pumpkin pie right now, it's going in my stomach. So I've always liked the January side of it because at that point it's like, all right, there's no more holidays. We're not drinking as much. We're not eating a lot of sweets. Like this is my reset. And I actually use January as a reset month for myself. And then I get right back on track. And then I bulk up all the way to March. And then I cut out and I'm good to go for the rest of the year.
Nice.
So how do we represent that conversation and really, I've talked about my methods. I've talked about SMART goals, and we really dove into that on previous episodes. So if you want to go hear that, go back and listen. But I want to hear your method, Jason. I know you were talking about your constant Spear and Clover that you use. Yeah. And I think this is a good opportunity to really dive into kind of what it is overall and how it's different than your traditional SMART goals or other goal setting methods.
Great question, Anthony. So first of all, I think the way that we bring back things like getting people into the gym in January, because ultimately I don't think we cancel Christmas, right? We don't cancel the holiday season from Thanksgiving on. Certainly be more disciplined, of course. But I think one of the ways to do it as a fitness guy, especially as a CrossFit guy, I think about this concept of core to extremity. And if you're watching the video, it's basically that if I want to do something interesting, like a muscle up or a snatch or throw a baseball or anything at the extremity, run fast, kick, anything, I need to have control and strength in my core. Does that make sense? And so with that concept being said, I think a lot of folks think about the extremity, having the nice car, having the expensive thing, having the six-pack abs, but they cut through the hard work that goes into the core first. And that is discipline. That's showing up every day, even when you don't feel good. That's going to that seminar that's going to teach you the skill that makes you that $1 million, right? Whatever it might be. But this core to extremity living, you can't start with the extremity. And so in this case, what I try to do is I try to do things that I want to do, not to get a result that I want, but because I actually want to be in the room. And that's why if you look at what I've done and how I've spent my life from a physical culture, it's been in sports. It's been snowboarding and skiing. It's been rock climbing. It's been jujitsu. It's been kickboxing. It's been CrossFit. It could be anything. It could be running, or it's been cycling. So if you're listening to this and you don't like any of the stuff that I just said, that's fine. But what I would say is that you can become a shepherd of your own attention if you just make sure that you want to do the thing that's going to give you that result. Does that make sense? And so my recommendation before we go any further into what I actually recommend you do for the next 30 days is that you pick a discipline that you actually enjoy, whatever that means. Zumba, walking, jazzercise, I don't care. And then, of course, there is, of course, the Spear and Clover Challenge. This is something that everybody that goes through my program, typically entrepreneurs, goes through. And so it's 30 days, and we separate our life into what I call like a 3-chambered heart. It's your personal and your personal life, your fitness, and your social and family life. And so my professional life, I'm spending time, I do a time study. I look at what I'm spending my time doing. I figure out exactly where I'm spending my time, everything from sleeping to spending time with my wife and child to going to the gym to how much I'm working. And once I do that, I have a really good idea of how I'm spending my time, and I can actually move it. I can engineer my calendar so that I love my life a little bit more. The second thing I do is I eat on a nutrition plan. I get to choose that plan. I don't care what it is, but I pick a nutrition plan and I stick to it. I start the year off with some great discipline, whatever it may be, whether it's paleo or, I don't necessarily endorse carnivore, but anything, right? Vegetarian, vegan, whatever. And then the third thing I do is I make sure that I get 3 sessions of what I call collective elective suffering. Shout out to Robin Lalonde, who's the coach that told me that. Collective elective suffering is where we get in a group and we elect to suffer together. So this is a kettlebell class. This is jujitsu. This is cycling in a group. This is running in a group. It's trail running. It's hot yoga, whatever it is that you like, but it's together and it's freaking difficult. And the reason we do that is because when you do something difficult 3 or more times a week, everything else in your life feels easy. Oh, and by the way, come April, you're going to have a 6-pack instead of being in a panic. And the last thing that we do is we go on 1 a week solo missions. I love long walks or ruck marches, which is what I do here in the Indiana Dunes. But whatever you want to do, by all means, take the dogs for a walk. I do float tanks periodically. You can meditate. You can do yoga on your own in a park somewhere. This is just time for you to do something out in nature, typically, that's giving you space to think about your place in the universe, think about relationships, think about where it is that you want to go in the next year, whatever it may be. And I challenge you to do this for 30 days and not come out a better person with more energy and a much brighter outlook on the future.
Wow. That's my answer.
Well, yeah, Anthony.
I didn't have a better word, so I went with that. But Yeah, I'm thinking about one thing you said, and maybe it's my fitness brain and psychotic nature, but the collective suffering. And I'm gonna tell you a little bit about what I do, and it's Spartan races, Tough Mudders, things that, oh my God, I can't do this kind of feeling when you're only an eighth of the way through.
That's the best. That's a great example.
Yeah. And you just get done and you're like, what did I just do? And then honestly, everything in life just feels easier.
Yeah.
And you just nailed it right on the head with that. That's where my brain went to. I said, if I made it through that, and this is how I work out. So now I know I did a 7-hour trek up for 13.5 miles up a mountain and I did it. So why can't I do my hour-long workout? There's no reason. I have to get to how I felt over there, and I know I have 10% more. And I think this is a really good time to bring up a really cool study, which I know I mentioned in like episodes 2 years ago, so I doubt you guys remember. But they did an episode, a study on pain tolerance and how much more we have left in the tank based upon our physical exhaustion. So they wanted to start it off easy, and they took 2 ice buckets, and they had a group of people volunteer to stick their hand inside an ice bucket. So they Group A and Group B. Group A was not allowed to curse. They could do anything else they wanted. They weren't allowed to curse. Group B was allowed to curse and do whatever else like they wanted, but their hand had to stay in the bucket. That was the rule for both groups, and they timed them. Not only did Group B last longer, Group B went an extra 30% more than Group A went. That's ridiculous. And it shows that at the point where we think we're about to give up, like that's that Group A. They're like, wow, this is horrible. I'm done. Okay, I'm done. Whereas me on that Spartan race, are you doing your group suffering or your long trek marches, and you're just, I can't do this. You're just screaming and cursing your brains out. You realize how much longer and how much more you actually have left in the tank. When we're mentally done, we have 30% left. And I really think we're about there.
Yeah, and first of all, I'm familiar with that study, and I think that's a really impactful thing that's very true. You know how they could have doubled that is by having a group of people putting their hands in the ice bucket and being able to swear. Because I don't know if you've ever swung a kettlebell, Anthony, but swinging a kettlebell for a long time is difficult. You know what makes it easier? Some guy next to you swinging that same weight, because if he doesn't put it down, you won't put it down. And he's over there thinking, God damn it, Anthony's not putting down that kettlebell. And so he holds on to it. And because of that, you go further. I'd like to tell you a quick story. And I've never told anybody this story except for maybe my mother. So I'm in basic training. And we were doing an obstacle course. And the obstacle course, in this case, was very similar to if you're ever going to like a corporate retreat for like team building, right? And there's like one wall here. There's like one wall here and there's like one wall here. And it would have been, it was probably a 90% effort for me. I was the tallest guy in this particular group, about 15 of us, to reach over and get across this thing. And we had to get everybody across. As the tallest person, it was like a 90% effort for me to get over it. So I do the best I possibly can and I reach it and I'm there. And then because everybody else was shorter than me, I let them climb over me like a bridge. Now, the fact that I was already at what I perceived to be 90% effort before I had a 200-pound man on my back, let alone 15 more, that tells me right there that whenever I think that I'm fully tapped out, if I'm holding myself accountable to helping out others or just accountable to others in general, I'm far less likely. I'll quit on myself 10 times before I'll ever quit on somebody else. And I think that's a common virtue that a lot of us have.
I think that's one of the biggest lessons that they teach you in the military that unfortunately we just don't really have much here in civilian life.
But you do. You have this opportunity. Somebody can walk into your gym, Anthony, today, and they can find accountability. They can find somebody who's going to push them to a further level, and they can find a better version of themselves in the mirror after like 3 weeks. And so it's one of those things where this is like one of my life's missions, man, is to answer the question of why I know that if I eat right, if I get good sleep, and if I go do physical training with people, around people in a community, every single day, or most days of every single week, I will feel better. I'll look better. I'll be more attractive to the opposite sex. I'll have more confidence. I'll be smarter. I'll be sharper with mental acuity. I'll just in general, overall, I will live longer. And yet we don't do it by and large. I don't understand that. That's that's the only real like illogical question that I keep rolling over in my head.
Yeah, and the having other people push you. I mean, competition does the same thing as camaraderie of getting people over. Every spring we do our Commit to Fit challenge.
Nice.
And you see it all the time. And I'm going to use one example so I don't bore everybody. But I had a client who I signed up a week before this challenge started, 1 week. And during our fitness assessment, we do an elbow plank, see how long you can hold it to judge your overall core strength. She got 90 seconds. Okay, that's pretty good. Our challenge started. Now, the challenge is there's 15 different exercises, and over the course of the next 4 weeks, you have unlimited attempts to try to stay in first, second, or third, and then you get points according to whether you end up in first, second, or third for each category. Overall points wins. Elbow plank was on it, naturally, my favorite one. So she does this challenge after a week into the competition, realizing that somebody had a 2-minute plank and she wanted first place off of it. So that time span, she went from 90 seconds to 5 minutes and 45 seconds.
Yeah.
Think about that. 90 seconds, she told me, I'm done, because it was just her on her own. So now when there's other people that she knows she has to beat, 5 minutes and 45 seconds. That is an extreme difference. That's not just 30%. That's like 400%. I'm not doing the math, but
it's like 600%. Yeah.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. That's how much we just give up on ourselves. We go, good enough. I felt it. I'm done. Whereas if there's competition or within the people, it blows it out.
Yeah, and imagine somebody had walked in the room and done 5 minutes and 50 seconds, she would have come back and done 7 minutes, right? I mean, we used to always do, we as gym owners, we all horse around. We would do high jumps and we would do long jumps and we would do verticals and all these types of testing, right? And I just remember on the broad jump, if somebody's broad jumping, particularly a group of people, we would get, 6 feet, 6'5", 7 feet maybe. But then if I put a piece of chalk or just anything, just something at a distance that's 6 inches further than the best you thought you could do, almost without fail, that person will be able to pass that line. And it's just one of those things. Part of it is having somebody there to push you. The other part is having a goal. And I think that's a really important lesson kind of across the board.
Yeah, and I think this ties right back into the goal setting and how to kind of get started for the new year. But we're going to take a quick break from a word from our sponsor. And then we're going to hop back into this episode and we're going to talk about that specific goals and now make it more in particular about what you can do this year, now, today, once this episode's over. So we'll be right back, guys. For us, we know what it's like to feel unhealthy, depressed, and downright defeated. We want to show others there is a right way, and through fitness, you could do anything you set your mind to. Fitness can give you that motivation, confidence, energy you need to bridge that mental gap and prevent you from missing important life events. We understand it's about feeling better, living longer, and being good examples for our kids. We understand this because we live it. And for us, that's the Redefined difference. Hey everybody, and welcome back. We have Jason here. We're talking about goal setting. So let's just really do this, right? You listen to this episode, you're hearing that we're saying, hey, you have more in the tank. There's ways of doing it. You take your Spear and Clover method. You have that 3 times a week of doing it. So what can I do now? How can I make sure that I get on the right track today, right after listening to this episode? What's the first step I'm taking?
First step you're going to take is making a goal that's based on your input, not some output that you desire. Let me give you a context for that. Instead of saying, I want to lose 50 pounds this year, maybe you figure out what it might take to lose 50 pounds. Maybe that's going to the gym 4 days a week, walking at least 1,500 calories or 1,500 steps, and maybe eating at some calorie limit. Instead of saying, I want to lose 50 pounds, you say, I want to go to the gym 5 days a week. I want to walk 15,000 steps, and I want to eat X amount of calories. And so by changing your focus on your inputs as opposed to the output, it immediately makes a shift in the outcome. It makes a shift in your winning just by doing the thing. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So step one is input. I actually agree with you 100% on this. It needs to be less about, I need to get down to this weight and I need to bench this much. It needs to be, how do I do it? It's go to the gym 4 days a week. So now you have a more achievable goal in mind, something that's a little more realistic. This sounds like SMART goals, but you're really putting yourself in a situation to succeed, and that's going to make you go longer and actually blow past your goal in the future, not just get there and be done. So you set that goal, and it's, okay, I need to get to the gym 3 days a week. That's what I'm doing for myself. What's step two?
Step two is to just start doing it. I mean, and possibly step two would be to have an accountability buddy, have somebody who's on a similar mission to you, have a group of people, a tribe of people that are on a similar mission to you. You know, I don't know if you can tell by now, but I'm big into tribe. I believe that, we probably should save our headphones when we're alone walking, right? We probably should be taking those headphones off and working out with a group of people, or with a personal trainer is also great as well. But having somebody there that's going to expect you to be there to push them a little bit further. And on the other side of that, they're going to be there for you to push you a little bit further. So I definitely would have an accountability person, accountability group, or just belong to a community style gym. I also would look at the people who I respect. And so if there are people that I respect in a given discipline, whether it's an athlete or a person who's lost weight that is in my life, I want to look at them and I want to ask myself what they did. And I need to make sure that if I want that ethic, if I want to hold that ethic, then I'm willing to behave in the way that they did to get where they are. Does that make sense? Because if I held an ethic of losing 50 pounds, but I behave as an ethic of somebody who gains 50 pounds, well, it's just never going to happen. And so I need to make sure that these two things are aligned.
I'm going to throw a third one in there real quick.
Yeah, hit it.
Which is probably my favorite. Find somebody that if you let them down, it would bother you like crazy. So just, and you don't even need to get them to do it with you. All you're going to do is go to them and say, for you, I'm going to do this. And so this is my goal, and I'm going to do this for you. That's that person, whether it's a kid, whether it's a spouse, whether it's a parent, whatever, somebody you just don't want to let down. And then you're always going to have in your head, I can't let this person down. I have to go do this. I told them I would do it. And that's really going to help push you and get to where kind of you need to go on top of everything else you mentioned. I agree. Or if you can't do that, have someone come with you and do it together. What's better than doing it together? Nothing.
Absolutely. I would add one more thing too, and that is don't think of yourself as a fixed person in space, as a fixed thing. A lot of people say, well, I can't do that. I have diabetes. I can't do that because I'm overweight. I can't do that because I have a bad back. I can't do that because I have the sciatica or whatever it might be. For every one of those cases, I can introduce you to somebody who's overcome that problem and is living a much happier life and a much healthier life. And so if you think, I can't do this because I am this way, well, you're already dead. You have to think of yourself as a evolving and fluctuating human being who is still yet to grow. And I don't care if you're 85 years old and you just heard that message, that is still for you. Anybody who stops evolving starts dying. Anybody who stops growing starts dying. Everybody who stops learning starts dying. And so if you want to prolong your life, if you want to prolong your vitality, you need to always be at least open to growth and evolution and trying and changing. I can introduce you to people who are type 1 diabetics who reduced their insulin to very, very low. Type 2 diabetics who were off of it. People on blood pressure medication that became off of it. People that were overweight and had terrible inflammation in their joints who no longer had to rely on medication or sedentary lifestyle. And I'm not talking in years, Anthony. I'm talking in weeks or months or a couple of months.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. There's always somebody that's worse. I have clients who can't walk. I have clients who are severely special needs that are achieving goals. I have clients who are 86 years old. There is always room. I've interviewed people on this show. If you want to go listen to people who just blow you away and you're just like, how do you get to where you are today? go listen to the past episodes of people we've interviewed. Go listen to other podcasts of people being on there. There's always somebody who's worse. If I hear one more time, I can't work out, my little toe hurts, I stubbed it, exercise isn't for me, I'm going to flip out. Because there's always ways around everything. There's always ways to achieve your goals. There's always ways to get you on the right track. No matter how severely injured you are, there is always somebody out there that's done it, and there's always somebody out there that knows how to help you. So go find either of those two people and get yourself going on the right track, and I promise you'll be happier, and I promise you'll feel better about yourself in the long run, because I love that, what you said. If you're not evolving, you're dying, and I really, really, really couldn't agree more. So thank you for that. And going into the next segment, one thing with your method, which I didn't even touch on, but I just kind of want to, it was multifaceted. And I love that approach where, for example, let me just, talking better in examples is, yes, losing weight is great. Yes, going to the gym 3 days a week is great. But if you don't have balance in your life, if you don't have things you're striving for, it's going to factor other parts of your life. Everything is more like connected than you think it is. So your fitness and your mental health overlap way more than you think they do. So you need to have both to really achieve greatness on both ends. So it's not just about going to the gym. Maybe it's about taking time for yourself. It's not just about taking time for yourself. Maybe it's spending time with your significant other. Maybe it's time about spending time on your financial health. It's just all these different things overlap. What is that called? Why am I blanking? The circles, Venn diagrams. So It's kind of like a giant Venn diagram that everything encompasses. And in order to really achieve that goal and really achieve what you actually want, that weight gain might be from fighting with your spouse. You might think it's your diet, but it might be from that. So you really need to be able to focus and see everything in a bigger picture before you kind of just dive head first into one option and really take a step back. Let's focus on all of this one step at a time.
Yeah, I mean, you're on the right track there. I think for starters, I think I mentioned it earlier, but I think of your life as a 3-chambered heart. And those 3 chambers are your professional or entrepreneurial life, in my case, typically entrepreneurial, your social and family life, and then your personal, like, self-care life. And there's only so much blood in that heart. And if there's not balance, if you just focus on fitness or just focus on work or just focus on self-care, the other areas suffer. The only way to enlarge the entire heart is to focus on each of them so that they're in harmony. And then once you do, then you can grow them all. You can expand all of them. And I can tell you that right now I'm doing more professionally. I'm spending hours a day with my newborn daughter and my wife. And I'm also in the gym doing kickboxing and jiu-jitsu 5 days a week, typically, not always. And the only way that I was able to do that was by making sure that there was no turbulence in any of those things at my previous level. And so there's this cliche that we say all the time, and everybody's heard it. You've got to walk before you can run. But for a moment, pretend like you've never heard that before. Every person listening to my voice right now at some point couldn't crawl. And for them, crawling was the hardest thing that they ever did. And then one day they started to walk. Now they don't even think about walking while they're looking at their phone, while they're in traffic in a city, and they're thinking about what they're going to have for dinner. Why are they able to do those things? Because they learned these skills, they incorporated them into their life, and then they were able to move on. Once they really understood each skill, we're able to move on to the next level. And so these cliches exist for a reason, Anthony, and that one in particular is valuable. If you understand that you can take something complex, incorporate it into your life, and then go forward and actually grow, not just survive, but thrive. Now imagine that's your fitness plan. Well, I can't make it to the gym because I'm too busy fighting with my wife, and then I have to go to work where my boss is mad at me because everything's late. Did it ever occur to you that if you went to the gym 3 or 4 times a week and ate healthier, that maybe you wouldn't be angry and fighting with your wife. And maybe you wouldn't be tired, so your freaking reports would be done on time, and Kowalski's not breathing down your neck. And so what I'm saying is, it's possible that the struggle is the way.
Yeah, I just agree. I really don't think I was else to add on that, but you're right. It's just right. It's everything kind of overlaps with the self, and there's always an option. And I love the fighting with your wife thing, and maybe not so much really, but just humorous for a little bit here.
No, but it's true. I mean, everybody knows the term hangry. Again, here's another cliche. Everybody listening to this has heard the term hangry. Why? Because, Anthony, it's true. If I'm hungry, if I'm tired, and my wife walks in and has a color shirt on that I don't like, I might be like, what's that shirt supposed to be? Like, what does that even mean? It's nothing. Of course, that's not a thing. For me, struggle has come, like dealing with struggle has come in 3 phases. So imagine you're driving in a car. When I was younger, and I don't know about Long Island, but outside of Chicago, somebody cuts you off when you're 17, you stop the car and you can get in a fist fight on the side of the road because somebody cut you off in traffic. It's actually happened to me when I was very young. That was level 1. I just got angry. Level 2 was like, oh, just going through my life, somebody cuts me off and I get very, very angry. And then I go, nope, serenity now. I'm not going to let that affect my life. And so I get angry. I have the impulse, but then I correct it with my experience and my knowledge. And now level 3, Anthony, is not only do I not get upset when somebody cuts me off, but I'm sort of hoping somebody will cut me off, because that's where the best stories come from, is when things don't go the way that they're supposed to go. And so I'm driving in my car, somebody cuts me off, and I just give them a smile and a wave. It never makes me upset. And they go home, and now I've given them a story. Some asshole was in my way today and he cut me off, because that's, of course, what they think. And to me, I'm like, oh, great, that guy got a story, and here we go on our way. Now I have a little bit of a story. And so I guess the takeaway here is, like, the things that we're most afraid of so often are the things that make our life interesting, because no good stories are about how everything went the way they were supposed to go.
I was going to do the flip side of that, was that if you're fighting with your wife a lot, one thing that's nice, or if you're fighting with anybody, is if you go to the gym and you're doing one of your 3 days a week of hell where you get physically exhausted, try doing one of those classes and then coming home and having the energy to fight with your wife.
Yeah.
It doesn't exist. So you just give up on the impulse of fighting, and it's just like, whatever. Everything's great now, because that was so much harder. I'm done.
I get choked out and punched and kicked every single day. So it's like, I would say, in like a lion, out like a lamb. I have photos on my Instagram from years ago. I don't do it anymore, but where you, literally it'll be like, yeah, let's go. Yeah. And then you go in there and you come out and you're like, everybody's the same. I just love everybody. And it's like, because you just got the life choked out of you for an hour and a half, you know? Yeah,
I love it, Jason. Let's wrap this episode up. I think we really nailed some really good points. I'm going to ask you the final 2 questions I ask everybody. The first question is, and it's very appropriate, is if you were to summarize this episode in 1 or 2 sentences, what would be your take-home message?
A fresh start.
A fresh start. I like it. Simple.
Sure.
New year, fresh start. Love it. And then the second question is, how can people find you, get a hold of you? Give us all of your details.
Thank you so much, Anthony, for giving me an opportunity to highlight myself. But before I do, I just want to shout out to anybody still listening to this. Go to Anthony's podcast, like it, subscribe to it, and share it with a friend. He's putting a ton of time and effort into this, not for money, because he loves helping people along their fitness journey. I could tell that before we even hit record. So do that first.
Appreciate it.
And if you still have energy after that and you like the things that I talked about today, you can find me on Instagram at Jason Skeesick, no spaces, Skeesick. Or you can find me at Spear and Clover on Instagram. I'm also available on all of the other social media platforms except for TikTok. And you can find our free content for entrepreneurs, as well as some programs that we offer at spearandclover.com.
Love it. And thank you for joining us on this week's episode of Health and Fitness Redefined. Don't forget, like Jason said, hit that subscribe button and join us next week as we dive deeper into this ever-changing field. And remember, fitness is medicine. Until next time.